All right, great. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole. It is Wednesday, February 28th, 2004, and it's 3 p.m. Before we start our formal agenda, I would like to acknowledge this very important day. Today is Pink Shirt Day, a day organized to raise awareness about bullying and to create initiatives that encourage a more kind, inclusive world. Bullying is a form of aggression and can have a profound impact on someone who's being bullied. It can change someone's life forever. Physical trauma can often be visually seen, but the emotional problems that can result, such as anxiety, low self-esteem, or depression, are not always seen and can lead to serious consequences. As a community, it is so important that victims of bullying know that they are not alone and there is help and support available. Kindness starts with each one of us. When I woke up this morning, I said, what will I do as my act of kindness today? I believe I've carried it out, and I'll leave that with you to think about what your act of kindness will be. And now I would like to acknowledge that the District of Sechelt is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Sechelt Nation. We respect the histories, language, and culture of the people of the Sechelt Nation, whose present continues to enrich our community. So with this, turning to the agenda, and first I'd like to get a motion for approval of the agenda as it's been published and circulated. Thank you. Councillor Toth, seconded by Councillor Rowe. All those in favor? Thank you. And the motion's passed. Adoption, the agenda is adopted as published. Now we're going to move to the next agenda item, which is new business. And we are business number 5.1, Municipal Hall and Library remediation options. And I understand that our first speaker will be Julie, and welcome. It's wonderful to have you here with your pink hard hat, and you're playing the part today. So please take it away. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Okay, good. I'm bringing forward a remediation update and proposal for the Municipal Hall and Library. The goal for our presentation is to provide information and receive direction on the repair strategy for the tower so we can move forward on the scope of work. This discussion is important to our team so that we are remediating works that will align with our communities, DOS, and the library's current and future needs, ensuring that these works are not redone in the future to meet those works. We appreciate your support on moving these repairs strategy forward. This one was taken at Christmas time. Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? From Kevin, from our office. Perfect. Just a quick refresher on where we're at and how we got here. 2 years ago, when I started at District of Sechelt, it was brought to my attention from our facilities technician and project list that there were many leaks and issues in the building, and there was notable water damage. He had been doing his best to repair and maintain the building without a full remediation plan. We then hired a building envelope engineer to do an assessment on the building that was provided to council in 2022. The results matched what our team expected, that the building required a full remediation plan and that small fixes and repairs would not do. This was also supported by a report completed by Hamilton Fine Home Building. I will not go into all of the details of the report, but it was clear that the building required being repaired. Additionally, in 2022, Cornerstone Consultants completed a facility needs assessment report, identifying space limitations to accommodate the current and future needs of Municipal Hall and the library. Where we are now. We are currently working on the remediation plan of phase 1 and 2 of 5. That has been approved by council. This includes drawings and specifications that will be used to tender the project. The phases are organized in order of urgency, 1 and 2 being the most important. As part of the remediation plan, we will be replacing windows, doors, siding, and other building elements. Phase 2 is the tower phase, which was approved this year at budget. It's where we require council's direction. It is important that this tower be fixed along with phase one. Toad Architecture, who is online, will be presenting 3 options to council with regards to the tower remediation, including options for future space needs for the community, library, and municipal hall. This is just the schedule. A caveat to that is the above are milestone dates that may be adjusted as we go through the project and the decisions made with regards to the tower. The main thing is we're already in the design phase, and we're moving into hopefully the construction phase in the summer of this year through to spring 2025. I just wanted to introduce you to our team. We have the building envelope engineer, SR Engineering. William Tran is our main lead with Andrew as his partner. We have the architect, Toad Architecture. Tony Osborne will be speaking to us today. And we have the library here, Leanne and Jessica, who I've been working with. After the presentation by Toad Architecture, Leanne from the library will be adding a few words, and then we'll go into questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So do we want to pause here, take questions, or do we want to go through what's the best? Go through each one? Okay, thank you. Great. All right. Do you want to introduce your next speakers?
Yeah, it will be Tony from Toad Architecture.
Excellent.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Julie, and hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here today. I'm Tony Osborne. I'm the principal architect and owner of Toad, Tony Osborne Architecture and Design. We were asked by SR Engineering to join the team here and explore some of the architectural options for the remediation of the exterior, as well as looking at making some progress on meeting some of those space needs that were identified in the report prepared by Cornerstone Architecture. So we have a bit of a presentation here to go over some of your options. I'm just going to share my screen. Is that looking good? Yeah? Sorry, thumbs up? We can see it?
Yes, yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay. So we have 3 options that we're going to review with you here. The first of these is the most straightforward. So you may or may not know that there is some envelope remediation to do on each side of the building. But the area that was decided to be addressed first is this northeast corner of the building where the current observation tower is. So in this option, we're really looking at just focusing the efforts at remediating the envelope damage to the tower and reconstructing it exactly as is. And Will, who's on the call here, probably has some more information to speak to specifically about the envelope remediation, so I'll just quickly turn it over to him.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So the intent of the building remediation is to bring back what is existing to new. So that would mean that we would be deconstructing the tower down to the studs and framing, and essentially then be replacing the exterior components that are exposed to weathering with new systems to meet modern day practices, to also prolong the service life of the building. So that would include the cladding, the windows, and the roof, and its associated details. But what that means then is that we would be using the reframing so that the tower would still look like a tower at the end of the day. There'll be some subtle changes to upgrade and make more resilient systems, but what's there will be kind of what will be returned. So that's the gist of the first option. So Tony, I'll defer it back to you.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Will. Okay, and it's probably worth saying that we can return to questions afterwards here. We'll just kind of do a summary of each of the options that we have for you. So that was option 1, just a straightforward envelope repair of the exit tower there. Moving on to option 2, we've started to look at should we be using some of the construction budget for the envelope remediation for meeting some of those space needs that were identified as required in the next few years here to meet the needs of the hall. So in this proposal, we're showing a reconfiguration of that exit stair. So the tower is gone in this proposal, and we're adding some floor area on both floors. So you can see here in the site plan that the existing tower is in this approximate location. We're just building out a little bit, retaining most of the trees and the green area, but kind of filling in one corner of the building here in order to add on a bit to the office on both the ground floor and the second floor. I'm actually going to quickly just skip to the outside photo here. I think it's helpful just to provide a bit of context first. So, one of the things that we observed about the existing hall, I think that there might be mixed opinions about whether or not it's an architectural masterpiece, but it's not a very transparent building. So we thought that we would use this as an opportunity to create some transparency from inside to outside. So you can see some large glazing introduced here that allows you to see from the exterior people moving and circulating up through that exit stair. That also allows us to bring some natural daylight into those office areas that are being added inside and to just kind of freshen up and modernize the exterior. So that was kind of the architectural intent with this option. So just kind of quickly zooming into the floor plans, it's important to issue the caveat, since we're starting to look at this in detail, that we are really studying very schematic options at this stage just to get direction on which way the council wants to go. If any of these options are decided upon, our design team has some research to do to actually come out and talk to the folks in City Hall to find out what the specific floor plan layout requirements are for any particular option. So in this case, we've kind of shown a blue hatch over the additional floor area that you would gain, but how that's actually divided up into offices and meeting rooms is something that we really want to study in the next little bit here to make sure that we get right. Again, if this is the option that Mayor and Council decide to move forward with. So what you can see here is the existing entry vestibule is approximately as it is. Where the tower used to be, we're proposing a new exit stair. We've kind of shown it coming up to a landing that could be a small display pedestal for some art potentially, or a small place to gather. And then that goes up to the second floor from there. And here you can see that additional office area with perhaps a potential to get a window in there to introduce some daylight deep into that office. Another thing to point out with this option is that in this location, there's currently an electrical room which is required to be accessed from the outside. So a couple of tricky things about this proposal. That electrical room would need to be slightly relocated so that it would still have an exterior entrance for BC Hydro to have access to. Which comes with some cost, unfortunately. So that does increase the overall construction cost of this option, which does tip the scales a bit to make this rather high value construction project for the amount of square footage gained. The other complicating thing is that we'd have to eliminate one of the two exit stairs in the building in order to complete this construction work. So if the intention is to keep the library and the hall occupied during construction, we would need to make allowances for having a temporary exit stair so that the building can continue to be safely occupied while this area gets built out. So one other complicating factor to think of when just thinking about whether or not this option makes the most sense. Rather simple on floor 2. Again, here you can see that new exit stair proposed, some glass into what could be a new meeting room. But again, this is something that we'd want to confirm in design development, and then just rather generic floor area added on the second floor there. So I guess we have some floor area totals here, but again, it's a modest increase in floor area toward your overall goal. There would still be some future construction projects that would need to happen in order to meet your overall space needs for the hall. But this is using the envelope remediation project to try to make a dent in that. And again, the advantages and disadvantages are kind of self-evident, and I did speak about some of the construction difficulties when I was speaking to the floor plans directly here. So primarily those have to do with needing to provide that second means of egress during construction, as well as the relocation of the electrical room. So modest project, good option, but probably not the best value for money. And then for something completely different, we thought that we would try to see what it would look like to meet those space needs identified in the report prepared by Cornerstone Architecture. And we've prepared a kind of site analysis looking at where could it land on the site without impacting too many of the other uses that are currently around the hall and the library, but also what might be a location that would be suitable to making this a very energy efficient building as well. So what we discovered is that if you just take a generic shaped building and give it a configuration that's best suited to energy performance, so almost net zero energy, it looks something like a triangle or a half circle with the open side of that circle facing south. That's where you can get all of the natural sunlight in, you can control it in a really easy way, and you can also minimize the openings along the north side where basically all the heat leaves the building. So that really ideal shape happens to land rather perfectly just to the north of the existing City Hall. So this is what we've shown here. We've proposed a kind of two-story addition with a lot of glazing and solar shading along the south side that faces the existing hall, so that we can really control that sun coming in and really make it a highly efficient building. The other thing this does is preserves all of the access to views and to natural ventilation from the offices that have windows facing north on that existing side of the building. So we've actually proposed a kind of civic courtyard on the front, which you'll see in a perspective view here, as well as a kind of green courtyard on the back that could almost act like the lungs for the building, and a way to introduce kind of natural ventilation into that new structure to make it really as energy efficient as possible. It's worth saying that we've shown the tower retained because, not that anybody asked, but as architects, we think that that tower does have kind of a nice effect on the scale of the overall project. And the new courtyard that we're proposing in the entry area here really kind of frames that tower nicely and makes sense of the addition to the new building. So we've shown it retained, but if mayor and council decide that it makes more sense to reconfigure that tower, we can obviously reconfigure it to something that looks more like option B and still pursue an addition on the building. So this is just kind of a summary of that space needs report that was prepared by Cornerstone Architecture. Hopefully this was just schematic, but we were trying to do a bit better than this in continuing to maintain those access to daylight opportunities from the existing offices along the exterior wall, rather than creating a kind of huge dark floor plate, which is why we did locate the building in the configuration that we did. But the proposed addition does meet the requirements of this report. It just needs to be refined through detailed design to make sure that we're accommodating the needs of the library as well as the hall. So here you can see in the site plan how that lands on the north side of the building, looking similar to that massing diagram, but it is interesting too to start to think about how this shape picks up on some of the geometries that are already present on the site, as well as maintaining that green buffer between the hall and the street to the north, which was important to us as well. It really kind of allows the hall to have this not only street facing side, this kind of civic side, but also a green side as well. So the configuration of the massing is really intended to do both of those things. And so from this exterior perspective of that new civic entry courtyard, you can hopefully see the way that we've framed that existing tower in a way that starts to make everything make a bit of sense. It almost reminds us a bit of the clock towers that are on town halls in England and throughout Europe, and kind of transforms this building from something that has a bit of a domestic scale into something that feels more appropriate for a civic institution. You'll see it better when we get into the floor plan here, but we've reconfigured the entry so that you can kind of turn left and go into the library, or turn right and go into the relocated council chambers here on the ground level. And we've also proposed to create a glazed wall or a glass wall that would allow folks from outside to be able to watch council meetings in session and create that kind of transparency to democracy that actually tells a story about how Sechelt feels about government. Also create some nice connections to the farmers market that happens on this side of the building, and basically opens up the building much more to the community. And again, we were really happy with the way this addition is balanced with the scale of the existing building. Everything is working quite harmoniously here. So on the ground floor, you can see that what I sort of explained in that perspective, that the council chambers have been relocated. The area grows about 150% from the existing council chamber situation, and it has that transparency out to that covered patio as well, to again speak to that transparency of democracy here. The existing council chamber space now gets the opportunity to be used for all kinds of civic purposes, like supporting the aging community in Sechelt as a kind of multi-purpose community space, which has really great access to the ground level as well. So that's an added benefit. And then how these spaces on the ground floor get divided between perhaps more storage space for the library or for the hall would again be determined in the detailed design phase. The nice thing about this scheme, though, is that we've been a little cavalier about showing a big cantilever here. We'd actually have some columns, but we don't really have to impact the existing parking situation too much. You get a nice reconfigured parking zone that really doesn't eat into too many of the existing parking stalls, which could also be configured as a kind of nice loading zone as well to serve the new building if that's desired. And then on the second floor, really kind of showing a very generic floor plate that needs to be divided up into office, again, as we studied the exact use requirements. But here, there'd be a lot of access to daylight, not only from this south-facing glazing that's going to introduce light here, but also the windows that are kind of proposed out from the individual offices, as well as the daylight coming from skylights above, which is a great transition to the next slide here. We love these kind of sectional diagrams that just show the way that all of these environmental forces are controlled by this type of building addition. So here you can see that in the summer, when the sun is highest, the permanent solar shading really kind of blocks out most of the direct sun from coming inside, so the building stays nice and cool. You can imagine that open windows will introduce breezes from that green courtyard that are kind of filtering through the project to keep it nice and comfortable. But then in the spring, when the sun is coming in and you really want it to heat the spaces, it kind of comes in past that fixed solar shading, and you really get to benefit from some of that solar energy there. So, it's not often that the right place for an addition to a building is also the right place for its energy performance. But in this case, we feel like we've kind of stumbled on a solution that can really basically check a lot of those boxes at the same time and produce a really beautiful form. So we were quite excited about it. And then just a couple images to whet the appetite about what that might look like. So again, if this is an energy efficient addition to the hall, it should probably be a very low carbon addition as well. There's opportunities to use a wood structure since it's only 2 stories, and obviously a lot of wood finishes, and have a space that really feels like it's looking toward the future of Sechelt and communicating something about the goals of the community. So I'll just wrap up quickly here with a summary of the 3 options. So option 1, just to remind you, is that quite straightforward envelope remediation of the tower portion. No real changes, looking pretty much like you're used to. Option 2 is the minor addition on 2 stories with the reconfigured exit stair, starting to freshen things up a bit, but again, it comes with a bit of a high price tag for a relatively modest increase in floor area. And then option 3 is really trying to make some strides toward reaching that goal of the additional space needs that we identified in the Cornerstone report. And quickly before we wrap up, we prepared a kind of 3D model that will allow you to look at the whole proposal for option 2 and 3 in 3 dimensions. So I'll just turn it over to Erin from my office, who's going to share her screen and just fly you around that model briefly.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
All right, so this is option 2. Oh, district mode. And then this is option 3.
So these 3D fly-throughs are kind of a helpful way to get a sense for the way that these proposed additions might actually land in the space. there's some topography missing. We've shown a kind of flat site here. Obviously, everyone's familiar, but there are a few slopes around, but you really get a sense too for the way the sun creates shadows and the way the landscape spaces are preserved, etc. The mayor seems to be parked out front. He's charging his car there. And then this is just a view from the back. So here you can see that green courtyard introducing that natural ventilation into the proposed addition. And the way, even from the back here, the addition appears to be very nicely scaled with the existing building. Guess worth pointing out, we didn't really cover it, but we've matched the existing roof pitch to the proposed roof pitch on the addition, as well as the geometry of that massing also matches the existing roof pitch. So we're kind of picking up on some of the cues of the existing building while proposing a way that Sechelt can kind of look to the future. Okay, thanks so much, Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne from Toad Design. I quite like that name, very catchy. I won't forget it. Quite intrigued by the design of the council chambers, formerly now council chambers, future fishbowl. But I kind of think that's an interesting design, but very nice design, Senior. Thank you for that.
Thanks so much.
Oh, and now I've got into, oh, excuse me, I keep forgetting I'm chairing. I was back in my design here. Now I'd like to introduce Leanne. Leanne, last name, I've got it here. Leanne Emery. And she's our executive director of the library, and she'll be doing a report for us. Thanks, Leanne.
Hello, everyone. Can everybody hear me? So forgive us for not wearing our pink shirts. We are actually in moving mode today to our Sechelt Library pop-up edition at the Trail Bay Mall. So we're wearing jeans. So first of all, I'm really excited that there is a remediation process underway. One of those lovely pictures that you saw was our children's area where we can pretty much put a fist through our windowsill. So it's been a long time in coming, but we're really grateful the process has been started and we're moving through a plan. If we're looking, I have a few board members here with us today and some of our staff members as well. So we're all, of course, very interested in what's going on this jointly occupied building. So the first thing I would say is the short-term recommendation 1 is something that we personally would not recommend. We don't see a huge benefit to the tower from the side of the library or the patrons or the community other than its aesthetic. So that wouldn't be an option we would recommend. Option 2, what I can say about option 2 is that we are desperate for staff space. I don't know how many of you have been into our staff area. A few I know for sure have, but that staff area was built for 5 staff members and we now have 15 that work from there. In the space of 10 by 9, we literally have 5 people working and processing, and 2 of them even have to share a computer and a phone. Our washroom is located right in the middle of our staff area, so that's not optimal. We have 0 room for growth, and we're literally busting at the seams for staff space. So option 2 is interesting to us because it does give us extra staff space, and it equally gives the district staff space as well. Option 3 is something that I think we would less recommend, maybe because we don't know enough about it, but from what we see, it looks like it doesn't give us staff working space and it doesn't give us extra library public space. It feels like it is much more, without a redesign of the actual configuration, we would have a harder time recommending it. Not saying that we wouldn't, but it would have to equally benefit the library, both from a staff perspective in our workspace and from the public side. So we might need to see a bit of a different design before we fully recommended it, but it would be our second choice. So from our perspective, our board and the staff that we have in here today and back in our staff area, we would recommend option 2 or 3. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I have some initial thoughts, and I really, number 3 honestly pushes a lot of my buttons. I mean, other than the parking lot with the orange car, everything else works. And I'm being facetious, of course, because the orange car is there. But there's a number of things that are important. One of the pieces that we could consider if we look at that is that, and the library didn't talk about this, but if we move forward with a larger building, we can give this room back to the library. Because this isn't really our room. We know this. This is the library's room, but we needed it. We need it for council meetings because that's how we make decisions to fund the library. So it's just a circle. But I think that I think the number 3, just to start, it pushes a lot of my buttons for a lot of different reasons. And if we get into the discussion, I'll have more to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Sir, other questions? Councilor Wheeler.
I never know if someone's buttons are getting pushed, if that's good or bad. So
No,
I
it's good.
think in your case, it's good.
Yeah. They're good field buttons.
Okay, so the lens through which I look at this is around asset management. And to me, our most important asset, sorry, Director Dillon, is actually our human resources, is our staff. And so I think we need to be looking into the future and building for that. And we all know that what costs $100 today will cost, $500 a year and a half from now. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I'm not really interested in investing money in something that actually doesn't expand the library's footprint. I've done a lot of work in the last year around vulnerable populations in our community, and there's a lot of things that Sechelt doesn't have, such as a true community center. And a lot of things I think are falling to the library because they are the resource that is open. And so I think we need to recognize that. And I would want to see an expansion of the library for the public side of things as well as obviously looking at what they need for staff. My question though, and this is, I guess, to the architect, and everyone just relax when this comes out of my mouth. What would it look like to build a 3rd floor on that? And here's why I ask, what you may or may not know, is that we have a daycare project that we have received funding for. What would it look like, hypothetically, for a daycare to be on the bottom floor of that expansion? And then I guess through to staff, would it be possible then to use some of that funding for the build? Because I see this being just such an awesome location for a daycare, being right downtown, right on transit, great partnerships with the library, the aquatic center, so many positives. So I just sort of wonder what the possibility of that might be, and could it still be a wood structure? Like from your perspective, what would that look like?
Thanks for that question. There are some technical requirements for a daycare that would have to be thought carefully about. There's a requirement for outdoor play space for the children that actually in an urban environment works quite well on the rooftop, because you can have kind of higher glass walls around the outside, and the kids can play without needing to fence an exterior play space. That would be the part that I would be most interested in solving, because in such a prime civic location, I don't think you want to see a kind of fenced play area that meets the kind of per square foot requirements for the daycare right there at grade. Same thing with the kind of drop-off requirement. Like typically daycares have a kind of a rush of cars when kids are being dropped off and then picked up. We would want to make sure that the traffic study takes into account that all of that is happening seamlessly with folks entering and leaving the library, as well as the municipal hall. But it does not seem like a non-starter. I think it's something that definitely should be studied and that we'd like to study as an option.
Thank you. Other questions? Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. I think we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves a bit here. I don't think we really have a budget for a large addition. We never really discussed that, so it comes as a bit of a shock to me. Also, from an environmental point of view, this area is first in line at sea level for sea rise. So building new buildings, with that in mind, I don't think is really something I would recommend at all. But I do think we need to get the most that we can out of the buildings we have. And maybe unfortunately, by sealing off the tower and treating it the way we did, we ended up with some of the problems that we have. So we need to maintain and use the space that we have. So, I mean, I like the tower. Like I said, when I was at the Writers' Festival, there was a writer there, that Janie Chang, who now lives in the area, and she wrote in a periodical that described her ideal space, and her ideal space sounded a lot like that tower. So I think it is a nice architectural feature, and I do think it's worth investing in. In terms of additional space, I would like to know how the librarians see libraries of the future. Because I think, for instance, even just the fact that you're going to a mall, or maybe you could locate some different things on Cowrie. We have a lot of empty space that through society is changing in terms of its use. And I would like to see perhaps some of their programs in lease space on Cowrie Street, wherever we have space, to keep the vibrancy of the village area in a more creative way without having to build our own space. And I know the Cornerstone plan really did not look at a modern way of living that we have, that we learned through COVID, is working remotely, working from home, working flexibly. And so just saying we have this much more staff projected and we need this much more space based on some old rule of thumb, I think is rather simplistic. Also, if we do go ahead with a third type option there, I think it'd be worth looking at separating the library and the city hall, and maybe giving the library the new building, and maybe designing that new building in a way that it could be movable, could be something transformable, that if we, can use it as almost a temporary building, that we can bring it somewhere else if we need to, because I've seen projections for this area to be possibly flooded from storm surge as early as 2030. So if I was building something, I have a background in a master's degree in architecture, a degree in planning, and a lot of facility planning experience, I would be thinking about that. So, I mean, there are these options. It's interesting to think about them, but I also think, we have a lot of real infrastructure to deal with, streets, sewage, septic, that we do need our money for, our capital reserves.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, some good questions in there and some thinking for the library staff as well. So thank you for that. Other questions? I know I didn't turn fast enough, so I knew somebody had down here.
First of all, thanks very much for Mr. Osborne for, I think it is a good visioning exercise. We certainly should be doing it at this juncture when we're doing repairs. I guess I would ask council, or just get council to remember that we have other phases of the existing building that we're repairing. So there are other costs that we have to be looking at in the existing retrofit program before we even get to looking at whether the Toad Designs option 2 or option 3. My second point would be that just picking up on what Councillor McLaughlin's mentioned and what Councillor Toth was just chatting about before the meeting started is looking at better use of the existing building. For instance, in this room, maybe Councillor Toth was mentioning, maybe we extend out the floor of the next phase up above here so that we're creating more floor space on this level. So I think there's more work to be done in taking a look at the existing building before we sort of leap to phase 3. And I guess one final point, I do appreciate the library's comment about just how tight their existing space is. And I have been in the back area. It's just terrible how many people are crammed in there. But one of the decisions that we're being asked to make, option 1 or option 2, preserve, rebuild the existing tower versus option 2, take it away. I really feel that, the tower is iconic. The last thing I want to spend money on is rebuilding space that we have no really use for. It's other than a symbol, but I would prefer that over spending a lot of money per square foot to build out relatively little space. I would rather preserve that capital and use it for whatever we do on option 3. I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Option 3 pushes all of my buttons too, but not in a good way. I really struggle with the mismatch of architecture design between the existing building and an envisioned, energy neutral addition. I struggle with, a dedicated council chambers for 4 hours a week. Like, really, we're here 4 hours a week. Do we need that much dedicated space? I don't think so. That being said, along the last few years, I've probably been the biggest proponent to tearing the tower down. It's a waste of space, that's not open to the public. I was here when the library building opened, and I remember it being a really cool thing that you could go up in the tower. But that's not possible now for a variety of reasons. And I just don't see a reason to keep it. That structure suffers from leaky condo syndrome, basically. And so I wonder why we would invest money in something that is just an architectural nice to have. From that perspective, like I really like what we've got presented in option 2. It gives us some space for now. Like I mentioned to Councillor Shepherd, can we put a second floor within this structure, within this room? We know that this building was built originally for the library, and it was built to be able to take the design load of a library on the second floor. So what does that mean when we're dealing with this much, existing mass timber? I think we could probably do it, and I think we could do it for a lot less than $8 million. The one question I do have is it looks to me like options 2 and 3 are both around $1,200 a square foot. So I just wanted to confirm if that was indeed the case. Thanks.
Oh, just a moment. Did we have an answer to that question now for Councillor Toth?
Sorry, perhaps, is that a question that SR Engineering should address?
Yes, I was just going to ask if Mr. Osborne has it. Julie, do you have it?
I can respond. Julie. I'll respond. That's I guess a caveat should be issued for all of the pricing and budget ranges that were submitted for each of the options. That really a quantity surveyor should determine the cost for any of these proposals. So we, based on our knowledge of similar building types, gave a range, but we would recommend that a proper quantity surveyor be hired to do a Class D estimate for any of these options before moving forward.
Councillor Inkster.
Thanks. Obviously earlier I talked about what I thought was really cool, and I thought planning ahead was what this group had done. And I indicated earlier, Chair, that there's a couple of reasons why I liked it, but I'm going to add some other reasons. One is that it's made of wood, and we could probably work with our community forest to get the wood for that building. I'd love to see some solar panels on the new building as we plan forward. And if people say that we need to look at if we are not going to grow that large, I'm going to tell this council that I remember when the Phoenix School over there had 9 to 12 employees in it. And I wasn't that young. So it wasn't that long ago that we had 9 to 12 employees, and staff could tell us how many we have now. That's a public discussion, whether they think we have too many or not, but a lot are being utilized and work really hard. So, And we know how big this community is growing. We know how many lots we're approving, which will need staff and servicing for those lots that are connected to staff. So we better start planning for the future. The library being here today is really key. I've said this room can go back to them because that was the original part of the referendum. This is their room. I will repeat that again. We just needed to use it. But why would they be part of that discussion with the larger building proposal that could include more library space? If they have said to us they need it. I also remember when the library staff room, because I was in there and I'm looking around at the group here and I don't think anybody was there then when I used to go, oh, you were there. Hello. Yeah, the two of you I think were there, but I remember when there was 4, 5, 6 people working in there and it was cramped. But once again, what I'm saying is if you plan ahead and project based on what we've seen historically in the last 25 years, the building that's in number 3, we will need. Our municipality, we're already busting at the seams now. So what do? Do we bring in portables like the schools do to put staff in portables? We tried that over there at the sewage treatment plant. People did at the old one, people didn't really like that. And so we built an ops center. So what I would like to talk about is planning ahead. And I remember when I was first elected in 99, this office was full at that point of staff. There was a little bit of room extra. And I had thought then that we based on our budgets and the money concerns we had as a municipality, we should stay at that size at that point. But this is almost 25 years later. So we should be talking about what our next steps are. And I would like to talk about as part of that, if we need to budget money to fix the existing building and make an expansion based on library and community needs that may include a daycare or community use part to the building, that we talk to staff about where the other pieces of our financing and or loans when they disappear. Because we have a number of loans that are disappearing. So we go down to almost zero other than the ops center. And so we do have room to make those important expenditures to help our library, to help our community, and to help the District of Sechelt staff.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ernst. Any other questions? Oh, Julie, thank you.
Thank you. I just was following up on Councillor Toth, what he had asked regarding the cost per square footage. So when I did a rough estimates with the Class Ds, it's around $1,000 per square foot. And I can get more exact numbers that I have in my notebook for you, but that's the range. And secondly, regarding, there was a lot of talks about space and it's dedicated to council. So the idea of option 3 was that the space would be flexible, knowing that council chamber is only operated for 4 hours, a week. So we use it for training, we use it for youth, we use it for music, we use it for tax support that the library does. So it's not just, the space is going to be designed so that it is used for flexibility in the future. One of the things is that under sustainability, growth and development, which was our sustainable plan, was that we invest in our existing buildings. So this was one way to do that is, we're doing this envelope replacement now. We have to think about what it's going to be in the future and starting to think, how can we use this existing structure and build it to our sustainable environmental goals and our community goals, which yes, it includes the library. And yes, there'll be a big part of how that's developed. We're just at the starting phases where we need your input of what direction so we know how to continue on and not wait another 5 years until this building is unusable. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Have those come. I'll leave this on. Just leave it on. Okay. Anyone else? Any other comments? Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. I'll go with the buttons, but it's not just good buttons or bad buttons, it's so many buttons. Obviously, I'm really in favor and pleased to see that I have a parking spot. But on a serious note, the issue around here is a lack of parking for public, for staff, for everybody. So I'm struggling overall, we've got an immediate, or sounds like an imminent disaster with the leakage and the rain screen failing and so on. But I don't know if we can justify any of the grander visions without looking at is there something even better? Especially when as I say, when I come back to the issue of parking, how we're double parking and fighting for parking and, you know, we're struggling with that. So I'm begrudgingly, because I really am excited about the opportunity to do some things better and bigger and provide additional services, but I can't see how we can make that decision when I don't think we're being, on a procedural matter, Chair, I don't think we're being asked to make a decision today in committee of the whole, but we're certainly being asked to make a recommendation. Having said that, the last piece of this is the recommendation 2 is to search for funding options, and obviously things like grants make a lot of projects a lot cheaper. So knowing it's a chicken and egg, but knowing what funding options are out there would make it that much easier to embrace a grander vision. Thank you.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I too am very concerned about parking, and also just taking away that side of, this lot with the trees and everything. And it's such an important part of the ambiance here. But also, I think that we haven't incorporated, to me, since being a counselor, is I think the underutilization of Seaside Center. I would like to see council meetings there and other things freed up to use that space as library city space, because it's a beautiful area, and I don't really feel it is actually, looking at the budget, reviewing that, getting, you know, making the money that it should be to just be the way we put it aside for rental. Also even Rockwood Center, like, I think, you know, we need that for our staff. The library probably could use it for activities. And why aren't we doing that instead? So as part of the space review, I think they should include that. I think that was not part of the original planning, but to me, it's really important to do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So anybody else? And I have a question myself. The first question is around option 2, and I know that the concern around space for the library staff. How much of an increase would that give us in option 2 if the library was to stay in a similar place? So Mr. Osborne, are you able, or Julie, are you able to handle? Thank you. Thank you, Julie. Yes.
I'll leave that to Tony to answer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
sorry.
No, that's good. You're a team. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Okay.
It looks like you gain around a little over 1,100 square feet or 106 square meters.
Okay. That's total. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. And then the other one I have is just around the option 1, which is something has to be done. But the one thing I can't remember, did the staff get air conditioning yet upstairs? Did you get some sort of air conditioning yet? Repeat.
So pardon me, there is air conditioning in the building.
Okay.
It is, it hadn't worked properly for a number of years, and so there was some work done to make it work more proper. So,
Okay,
yes,
good.
yeah.
Good, thank you. Because I know that was a real, I just didn't know when that problem existed, but I know you were going through, it was hell up there. So now these windows that we're talking about upstairs and so on, are these new, and would any of these new, I guess renovations, whatever you want to call them upstairs, would they be available for any grants of any sort if we're replacing windows, that type of thing? Any idea?
On the
Option
current
one,
plan for
yeah.
the reno,
Mhm.
we haven't seen a grant list per se that would apply.
Okay.
Not that, you know, but this is now becoming an active project.
Right.
So the grant would have to actually proceed pretty quickly. But we have, you know, earmarked enough money to do phase 1 and 2 at this point.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Great. Okay, council, we had a lot of discussion, and where are we at now in terms of any motion? Is there any motion that's coming up right now? Councillor Rowe.
Well, I'll throw it out there. I'm in favor of option 3. Because it actually provides for the future. I'm not in favor. I don't see option 2 providing much relief for the future, for what the community needs. What that actually looks like doesn't necessarily have to be exactly as laid out. I think we need to take things into consideration with regards to the library, and I would really like to understand whether a daycare could fit into this project and whether we could use that funding and what that would look like. So that being said, I can put a motion on, well, a recommendation on the floor that we support option 3.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Seconder?
Yeah, thanks. Can I speak to that a little bit?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Rowe, for looking at the future of our community because we are growing. We keep approving things. People are going to live there. They're going to need bigger services to help them out. And a bigger library and community center. We got to think of the future. Although I will be interested as chair, as we proceed forward, how we make those decisions. This looks like a decent design. We may have to make changes. We need a lot of the library's input. And we may need their support, how we proceed forward to get the funding. Because the libraries has a lot of power in this community. They're much like the fire department. In terms of the gratis in the community, so I want to see that. We just need to make sure that we have proper parameters around how we make decisions and design, because we all know that a horse designed by committee is a camel. So we just need to make sure that we have some parameters around the design decisions, and we consult very quickly and soon with those main users, which is the community needs that Councillor Rowe identified, but also the library needs, because it does identify a room in the bottom. And that could be a library use room. And it's true, the council space that's identified in there, like I said, it's time that we move to a different room with this. And if that space could be a community space other than council, we do only need it 4 to 8 hours, although during budget we need it for longer, but we need it for 4 to 12 hours a week a lot of the time. So let's use it for community. Thank you.
Great. I want to make one other comment. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Shepherd, I'll come right to you. Just following up on Councillor Inkster's comment. I think it's very, very important that in the design, and it's been mentioned, that there's multi-purpose space. The cost of building, the cost of space now is so high that we can't really look at necessarily specialized rooms unless we need it for specific purposes. So the more we can look at multi-purpose space, I think is really, really important. So glad to hear that's in the design vision. So I think that's important and goes along with what you're saying as well. And with Councillor McLaughlin's comment around Seaside Center, I mean, it's maybe a look at some of the other spaces that we have, but that's getting us off track. Let's go back to this motion. Councillor Shepherd, did you have any other comments about the motion?
Yeah, just a quick question back to Councillor Inkster. I'm confused, as I often am. Are you voting in support of this measure of the motion?
Yeah, I seconded it in order to speak in favor. Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
I'm going to vote against it. It's not because I don't believe that I think we've got time I know that we need an expansion of the building. I think we've got time to do a lot of exercises on what that space, how it should be laid out, whether that's the correct configuration and so on. I would rather see a motion about whether we're proceeding with option 1 or option 2 and leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, so if I may get some assistance with this, so are you asking for a what's the word I'm looking for? Difference to the motion. What's the word I'm looking for? An amendment? No, you're not asking for an amendment. Okay.
No, I'll let's finish the existing process. So I'm saying that I'll vote against this.
Okay,
And then I can raise another motion later.
okay, thank you.
What
Great.
Councillor Shepherd said.
Okay, and Councillor Talk.
Thank you. I guess when I look at the the massing that's being shown here for options 2 and 3, I don't necessarily see that we can't proceed with option 2 and 3. Like option 3 shows the tower remaining, but it also says in the documents that it could be demolished and things could still be done a little differently. I think when we're talking about the condition of this building right now, the space needs right now, I don't see us building option 3 in the next 5 or 6 years. And so my question is, can we still build something like option 2 and then come back and build option 3 as we develop what we actually need long-term? Thanks.
Okay. Okay, now is that a question on the table that we can have answered at this point? Okay, Julie?
Yes, I will give that to Tony. We did discuss that as an
Okay.
option as well.
Thank you.
Yes, that's certainly an option. Essentially to build the northeast facing corner of option 3 as kind of modification of option 2. Again, it's a bit of a high cost chunk of the project to bite off because it's most complicated around that exit stair and the relocation of the electrical room. But it could definitely be designed and built in a way that is ready for the additional floor area at the back. I would note that it's harder to accommodate some of the space expansion that the library would be looking for, which seems like it could be better located at the rear of the structure. So it'd be a bit unfortunate to bite off this portion of the project now without helping the library meet their, it sounds like, pretty immediate space needs. But yes, definitely a possibility.
Thank you. It will come back to that, Councillor Inkster and McLaughlin.
Oh, okay. I 5 or 6 years maybe actually when this is built, based on the fact that this is coming to us today. We don't, sadly, we don't move that quickly. We've talked about a number of projects in municipal politics over the last number of years, took a number of years to come to fruition. Because you have to get the community to decide and you have to get the funding and then you have to decide on the plan, the actual final plan. Although I will say if we can't make decisions or we can't go in a particular direction, i.e. moving forward, we may be in the same situation they were in the 90s. And that was where they had to quickly build this building. They got funding through referendum for the library and then sold 2 more buildings to build the top piece. But what was happening at that point is they were out of space at the existing 2 municipal facilities, and the library, which is presently the resource center, was leaking. So there was, I mean, it's sort of deja vu for the library again to cease leaking, but actually that building was rotting, the resource center was rotting and leaking around the library books, and that's why there was public pressure to go to referendum to build this building. But it was done quicker than you may have hoped. And the final decisions they made may not have been something that looked into the future in terms of the flat roofs, the tower, and other concerns that staff have been complaining about over the last number of years because they had to make a quick decision because the library was rotting. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for that history. Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I won't be supporting this motion. I do think we need to do some overall space planning first. We do need to get portions of this bill. We have it as a capital project that we do need to get rolling on repairs. So that's a given. As for the tower or not, whatever, I don't think there's that much harm in trying to repair whatever's leaking in the tower and move on from there. Yeah, I think we need more planning with the library. Also, we're supposed to be sharing services and thinking with the SCRD. I mean, we have Half Moon Bay on one side and Roberts Creek on the other. We have libraries, we have services. We're hoping to do a community services plan. So we need to do some planning about what the future is, not just a building about the future, but do some planning first. It's a lot cheaper to do some planning than to commit to building. And we haven't even seen our budget yet, our capital budget or operating. So I think the taxpayers are not going to be really willing to take this on. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, great. I think turning it off. We've heard from everyone. Now where we're at, if I can help kind of bring this together. So we've got recommendations. Council selected a minimum option one, short-term, or option 2, or medium term. And then we've got direct staff to search for grant and funding opportunities for one of options 2 and/or 3 and report back to council for approval. So it sounds to me we've got a combination of things here. We don't have either one of these that we're really deciding.
There's a motion on the
Oh,
table.
wow, okay,
We have
help
to
me
vote
with
on it.
that. So
Let's just call the vote on the motion.
call the vote on the motion. I'm learning. See, that's why I'm chairing tonight. So this is, so call the motion on, calling the motion, no,
You're calling the vote.
I'm calling the vote on the motion. Thank you. Good. Option 3.
All those in favor?
All those in favor? I'll be okay.
Opposed?
And opposed. Okay,
Would you like that?
yes, I'd like that.
No, no, you asked them that. Would you like, or are we still doing that? Okay, never mind. Sorry.
It's- All right, so it looks like it has been opposed. Yes. Defeated. Thank you.
Now you have a clean slate.
Okay. And we'll go back to a clean slate now.
There.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Toth.
I'd like to move option 2. Or that
Option
we,
2, okay.
yeah, council select option 2.
Okay, I have a motion on the table for option 2. There a seconder? It's me as well. Yeah. Yeah. Recommendation 2, direct staff to search for grant and funding opportunities for one of options 2 and or 3 and report back to council for approval. That's what's on the motions on the table right now. It's not, okay.
No, Chair. I moved option 2, medium term, the removal of the tower and the addition of a new wing of the building constructed
Okay.
over the footprint of the removed tower.
Okay,
We can discuss recommendation 2 if we find out that there's any support for option 2.
right.
Yeah. I thought it was the other one, sadly. I'll remove mine. Second.
Right. I don't think there's a seconder. So that motion is defeated, correct? Oh, just dies. Like myself, I think in about 2 minutes. Director Dillon.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't want to jump in. Ms. Maris is doing a wonderful job today, but what I'm hearing on this discussion is there's 6 things that council wants more information on. Number 1 is a parking concern. How library is going to be incorporated into this new space, how that looks like, how much space it could gain. How the use of council chambers would function as a flexible area. How a daycare could potentially be incorporated and how the project could be funded and how it could be phased over a few years. What could be done is that staff could come back with a supplemental report to what's being presented today to address those 6 items for subsequent decision-making.
Okay, comments, questions? Council? Mayor
So,
Henderson.
thank you, Chair. So in response, I'm curious, is Director of Engineering suggesting we don't proceed to discuss any other resolutions, like we hold this in abeyance?
No, I think what council can do or the committee of the whole can do through the chair is issue a recommendation that staff comes back with information to address those 6 points.
Okay, I certainly support that regardless, but I'm still interested in terms of today. And I'll move
Okay.
option short-term 1 to get on with the minimum mandatory requirements.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
Yeah.
That's okay. I have a seconder and a question.
Yeah. Just for clarity, this was to be, was this to be done with part of the project, or it was clearly supposed to be separated from and something we have to do and decide on today anyway because of the work being identified that needs to be done? Is that what this is? I mean, is this just a confirmation, Madam Chair, of what we need to do? Is that what this is? Yes, get that work done.
That's a good question.
Yes.
Julie. Thank
So
you.
my understanding is, what you're asking is that Does the tower need to replace now? Do I need a decision on that? Yes, I do need a decision on the tower. Are we replacing it or are we not replacing it? Because we do need to move forward on the remediation plan. So we need to get some type of input on what direction council would like to go.
Okay. So
It is slotted for the books right now, as part of the budget approval to fix the tower. But again, we want to just ensure that we're in alignment with what you guys want moving forward in the future. But we need to fix the tower.
okay.
Either we keep it or we remove it.
Okay, so there's the question. The question is, do we keep the tower or do we remove it? This is what's in front of us right now. Which is the motion. I believe Councillor Inkster seconded that motion, correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry, thank you. I'll repeat their name next time, so catch that. Okay. So, we have a question first before we.
I'm sorry,
before we come through.
I'm sorry. Through you to the architect, I think, just to be clear, only option 2 allows us to build on in the future. Is that correct? Option 1 limits that?
No, option 1 is just a straightforward envelope repair of the tower. So any of the other options would still be on the table if you proceed with the simple envelope repair.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Shepherd.
You know, this is such a difficult question, and I'm focusing on the tower right now because as I said before, it has no use other than something visual, and it's been important for the municipal headquarters for a long time. So I'm actually not going to vote for this motion. And I will, if it's voted down, I would vote that we defer. My own idea is to defer on recommendation 1 and to move ahead with recommendation 2, and that we just defer for 2 weeks. I know I'm torturing the poor Julie over this because it's in the next sequence of work. We do need to make a decision, but I just want, personally, I would want 2 more weeks to.
Okay, and Councillor Shepherd, what would that look like in terms of the 2 weeks? What would you need to have in that 2 weeks in order to come to the next point of decision?
To be frank, it's really to discuss with council, other council members.
Okay, excellent.
Recognize, thank you. I think there is an existing motion, although I like the deferment one. This is a really, I thought we were coming today to not rip down the tower. So, because that's what we're making a decision on. So I think we need a couple of weeks to talk about that. It's been something that's not been well used over the last number of years, and there are some weather issues related to it for whatever reason. I don't think it's necessarily not use. Maybe it's because people aren't there to notice problems happening up in the tower, but it's really iconic. You know, it's basically a lighthouse. That's what was built there as a lighthouse for Sechelt. So, you know, like a port in a storm, municipal hall, right? But, so I think we need to talk about this.
Okay.
This is a really important community issue
Is
thing.
there just one quick, Councillor McLaughlin? I can't remember, was there a cost on that if we kept it or not kept it? Was that broken down in terms of the actual tower? Is that is the 600, but does that include pieces of the tower as well? Like, is that, yes, yeah. You could just break that down a little bit for me.
Thank you for the question. So the remediation of the tower is included in the budget that was
Okay.
approved in this recent budget approval process. It's phase 2 of 5. So phase 1 was approved last year and phase 2 was approved this year. So the basic tower remediation is in our existing budget.
Okay. So that could save us money, whatever, or not, depending on what our decision is.
Yeah, so or just doing the existing tower how it is not adding to the budget at this moment.
Right on. Okay, thank you. Okay. Councillor McLaughlin. Yes.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm kind of pro tower because I have a background in design, and I just want to point out that the architects that we have hired have also said there's some attributes to the tower, especially if we go for the third option, that it has a main feature of the whole design. And it also, I think, complements the rec center with these, it was built kind of together. They were designed to have that theme. And actually, I live in the village and I can see that tower lit up at Christmas or any time, including the panels that are falling from the ceiling. I can see that from my bedroom window. So it is one of the few architectural features that we do have here. It does reflect our, maritime situation. And I don't think it's that bad. In fact, we can design it to use it for
Okay.
something special, a special room.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLaughlin. So what I'm hearing is we're not, at this point, we're not able to make a decision. We want to come back and talk about this again in terms of staff or council. I know, but I'm just going to come back to the motion to defer. Is that correct? Can you help me with the wording on that?
Anderson has a motion.
So we have a motion,
Mhm.
and I'd observe for council's benefit, we're in committee of the whole. So before we can actually vote on this to put it into force, it has to come to a regular council meeting. So perhaps an accommodation, he said carefully, is that we look for staff to bring, if we were to vote in favor of this, bring it back not at the next council meeting, but the one following, which would give Councillor Shepherd 3 weeks.
Okay. Good.
Wow, I need more time than that.
All right. Can you help me just pull this in now and tell me what we have here?
Certainly, Madam
Thank you.
Chair. I believe the motion on the floor is option 1 as presented in the report for the replacement of the tower at the 600,000 that's already included in this year's budget.
Right. Okay. We good? All right. All in favor? Okay. Seconded? I know, we're doing that again. Okay, we're good. All in favor?
Okay, all in favor?
Yep. Opposed? Okay. And I think it's defeated. Okay, all right. Oh, I'm exhausted. Would anyone like to take? Learning is so much fun. Thank you for not laughing too hard at me at this point. You're doing very well, crowd. Oh, Adam. Councillor Shepherd.
So could I make a motion to defer recommendation 1 for 2 weeks and to be brought back to regular council?
Thank you. Seconded?
Committee of the whole then.
Okay. Seconded? Councillor Inkster? All in favor?
Can we discuss it?
Discussion, please.
Thank you, through the chair. I mean, I thought this committee of the whole meeting was for us to discuss this. So to go back and say you're going to discuss it with councillors here or there, I don't find that really fair. If you want to discuss it, say what you want here, because that's why I'm here, to discuss it. I don't know what your reservations are, what you want to discuss, but they should be discussed here. Committee of the whole, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Inkster?
Yeah, I think what Councillor Shepherd was saying is that he may discuss with council, but he wants to hear from the community. That's what I want to do on this important icon. And I need a few weeks to hear from the community.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Great. Correct, Councillor Shepherd? Good. Anyone else? Any other comments? Okay, I think we're good to go. All in favor? Didn't I say that already? All in favor? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin, opposed? All right? That, okay. And one other comment.
I would also like to make a motion that staff bring back information on those items that Director Dillon outlined
Excellent.
as part of that.
Excellent. Okay. Motion on the table, seconded it. Great. All in favor? Okay, Pat, carried. Good. Oh, okay. Anything else? Thank you. Very good. That was very excellent Good thinking. This is a very important time for this discussion. And there's a lot, there's a lot of emotion attached to this building in many ways. And also we know that there's a lot to think about for the future. So thank you for being here tonight, our library people. You mean a lot to us and you're a very important part of this community. So your feedback's very valuable to us. So thank you for being here. I'm fine. It's all part of the learning. All right. All right. Okay, we'll just wait until, just give everybody a minute here. And now we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is, and we have the 5.2, the permissive property tax exemption review process. And Director Douglas, would you like to introduce this?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Back in September, when we introduced the bylaws for 2024 tax year, that's the permissive tax exemption bylaws. Council stated that they would like to review that process and either through committee of the whole or through a select committee. Just go through and get a better understanding of the permissive tax exemption. What does it mean? Who's getting it? A little bit of a deeper dive. Right.
Okay.
So the recommendation here is to appoint a small committee or a smaller committee of council, which would be a select committee just for this one purpose, to review the permissive tax exemption process.
Okay.
And look at it from a community standpoint.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the council? Councillor Inkster.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I wasn't one of the ones that suggested this. What I would suggest is those that were interested in doing it, step forward to form that committee.
Well, if you give a girl a chance.
If
If you're armed and fly up there at the very moment of
Game on.
being able to speak.
Councillor Rowe, do you have something to say?
I would like to volunteer. I was one of the ones that spoke to this. I'm just giving you a hard time.
Excellent.
Counselor.
Okay. Excellent. Councillor.
I'm happy to volunteer.
Thank you. We have one volunteer, Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Chair. This is something I've spoken about at great length as well, so I'm also happy to volunteer. I did have one question though, in that I apologize if I missed it. There was a lot of agenda here. Was it envisioned that this would be a committee just of three, or are we envisioning trying to bring in a couple members of community organizations or something from outside of the District of Sechelt as well?
That would be up to council to decide, but council's the one gifting the permissive tax exemption on various non-for-profit and church buildings or properties. And so I personally, I feel it should be council that would review this, right?
Okay, excellent. Any other comments, questions? Yes, Mayor Henderson?
I'll make a motion that councillors Rowe, Toth, and Bell be appointed to the select committee to be known as the Gang of Three. Okay, maybe corporate officer will fix that last bit.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table and then I'll take your question. Motion on the table, seconder? Councillor Inkster?
Yeah, that's
Seconded?
fine. There's three. I just, an amendment, if it's friendly, is when we do these these select committees, I would suggest that we have a timeline. We can't have a committee that just exists forever. I know that the council members involved, I think I know at least two of them will want to get this done as soon as they can, because there's other things going on. But it would be neat to see a timeline on this, like 6 months or a year, because we've already decided on this year's. But if they want some changes made or some suggested changes, they want to do it before next year's exemptions. Yeah.
Okay, yes, Director Douglas.
Yes, I would think we would need like 4 months.
4 months.
We're going to be starting to accept applications very soon for 2025's tax year. So I would like to be well ahead of that curve. So by August, we're already preparing the reports and things, so we'd have to be done before that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Friendly
we-
amendment is the
yes,
three people be appointed to the committee to report out no later than September 30th.
so that's the amendment.
That's.
Oh, no,
Amendment.
okay, August
Did we-
31st.
Can you repeat the amendment, please, Mayor Henderson?
So that that Councillors Toth, Rowe, and Bell be appointed to the permissive property tax exemption select committee and report back to council no later than August 31st, 2024.
That good?
You okay with that?
Everyone
Yeah,
good?
sorry.
Yeah, that's what I, yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Oh, discussion.
Oh, we have discussion next, yes.
This light.
Counselor Shepherd? No? Okay, discussion? Counselor, I see the light now.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. I'm just wondering, the purpose of this, is it to save money for the district in terms of amount of exemptions groups get? I don't know if we're going to look at, it's context of the community, I think. Is this committee going to look at, there's no terms of reference or anything here? Are they going to look at what's exempted in our surrounding jurisdictions, the SCRD and the town of Gibson's, maybe Powell River? Because looking at the list, I don't know, it seems pretty clean and straightforward to me. And so I don't know why we would be fussing with this right now, when there's so much financial angst in the community, so many volunteers contributing to the community in, these organizations, that I'm just hard pressed to put so much scrutiny on them right now. Thank you.
Okay. So that's yes, so Director Douglas.
It's not uncommon for a new council to review the process. Number one, they get a good understanding of it. They get a little bit more in-depth information about the groups that are applying and receiving permissive tax. I mean, from a municipal tax point, there's $255,000 that we're, relieving organizations around the District of Sechelt for, or gross taxes of $596,000, which is being picked up by the rest of the taxpayers. Right, so it is a large amount. It's not to say that we should be cutting it back or not, but I know Town of Gibson's is looking at it at this point. So yes, other jurisdictions do that.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Councillor McLaughlin?
Yes, if I could just follow up. I think given that this is post-COVID, it would be worthwhile to look and confirm that these are the organizations that they were pre-COVID, because a lot of board of directors have changed, a lot of, we don't know if they're all actually as organized as they used to be. And so I think it'd be worthwhile for each of these to confirm that they do have a full board of directors and they're registered properly, so that going forward, we've double checked that. Thank you.
So that is something, yes.
These are double checked every year. We get new applications every year for every organization.
Okay, so it is part of the process being confirmed on
That's
a
correct.
regular basis.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion? Councillor Toth, and then I'll come back.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to point out, we may meet, we may discuss these things, that we may ultimately, at the end of the day, recommend no changes at all. But one of the things that I know, for example, is that there are a lot of jurisdictions. Let me try that again. Churches are statutorily exempt for the place of worship structure only, according to provincial legislation. Anything beyond that is at the will of the council. And that's something that I don't know if the District of Sechelt has ever revisited, but we give the exemption on the entire property. And when we look at a lot of other jurisdictions, you're getting churches, you're getting nonprofits that own land with a lot of parking that are looking at developing some of this land into affordable housing projects. And if they're not paying any tax on it, what's the incentive to actually develop it? So is this an opportunity for us to maybe get some of the churches to get moving on redeveloping some of their parking spaces into something that's of a real benefit to the entire community. So that's where I come at it from. Thank you.
It's an excellent point, especially with the new program that's just come out of the province. And that's exactly what they're looking for, is land, other pieces of land to develop with. So, thank you. Great. Mayor Henderson. Oh, you're good? Okay, great. So we have a motion on the table and all in favor? Opposed? Counselor McLaughlin and Counselor, what was her name? Inkster.
No, I
Nope.
I was just excited
Oh.
about giving those three some work.
Oh,
I-
you're in favor.
yeah.
Okay. And Counselor McLaughlin is opposed. Carried. Great. Thank you, guys. Super. Good work, Council. And now we'll move on then to our next point of order here, which is the notice of motion from Counselor Shepherd. And let me just grab this on here. And we're now looking at our noise bylaw. So Counselor Shepherd, would you like to speak to this first? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me try and summarize what's happened, why I've asked it to come before council. It's arisen because there's sort of three issues or complaints that have come up in the last little while. The first one's from the East Porpoise Bay Community Association. In 2022, a local sand and gravel brought in leased equipment, and there were a fair number of residents who felt that the sort of one-time noise that went on for a week was excessive. And their problem was that there's no decibel limit. Well, there's no decibel limit at all in our existing noise bylaw. The second issue, I think Councillor McLaughlin's going to raise, which has something to do with the planes overhead from the harbor. The third issue is a recent complaint from someone in West Sechelt over a exterior heat pump. And again, they complained there's no, in the existing bylaw, has no limit. And part of the reason, so we have three complaints. I guess part of the reason I wanted to brought forward is that it's on the case of the East Porpoise Bay group and the resident West Sechelt, I have to commend them both. They both went and canvassed other communities and municipalities and said, look, these communities have bylaws in place based on decibel levels. So we can objectively measure any excessive sound now, whereas we probably couldn't have done that 10 years ago. So I do feel it's time for the district to look into a bylaw, an updated noise bylaw.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Discussion first. Yes. Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, thanks. It's good to update things and the concerns that were brought forward by Councillor Shepherd. At least a couple of them is the equipment issue is one that is a good one, and individual houses that are dealing with noises nearby that they seem powerless to deal with is something we should talk about updating. I just have, Madam Chair, I have a process question though. I thought the notice of motion triggered that the issue then come to the next council. Just to be clear,
I'll need clarification. Thank you.
Yeah.
According to the procedure bylaw, if a notice is submitted by a member of council 9 days prior to the meeting, it can be placed on the agenda for distribution that Friday and considered at the meeting, the very next meeting, which was the case with the submission.
Okay, do you have a follow-up just before? Sorry,
Yeah.
Mayor Henderson, are you?
I think just because I share Councillor Inkster's comment because of the recommendation on page 56 that it be reviewed at a committee of the whole meeting. So I was anticipating that meant a future committee of the whole meeting. Thank you.
Other discussion? Councillor Toth?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Setting aside the process question for a moment. Do noise bylaws enacted by municipalities actually have jurisdictional authority over provincially regulated mining activity or over the airspace above a community? And I look to staff for the answer to that question because I understand where Councillor Shepherd's coming from, but if we don't have any authority to regulate those particular activities, I think those are the largest nuisance that, we're really trying to talk about here today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have someone that can take that question from staff?
Off the top of my head, I don't believe so, but I'm happy to get clarification for you on both.
Thank you. Right. Good. Other discussion? Councillor McLaughlin?
Yes, through the chair. I mean, I did forward some information to councillors about how technically you might say that, but also on the other hand, there are documents like from Transport Canada saying, covering their, so to speak, that, an airport will have areas where flight paths are, right? And there's rules for that, and there's building requirements for that. And then when there are noise issues stemming from that, that flows from those studies. Like, we don't have a major airport like Vancouver per se, but when they're dealing with those issues, they do have a process. And if you read the documents I said, they do say that, if you're going to have noise from an airport or something, they don't recommend you build housing there. Okay, and then if you move flight paths, which I suggested that has happened here, then, that's not something they support either. So on the one hand, they can't do much about it because their job is to fly planes and make sure people are safe in them. But here, I'd like to get into more details about it, but I think there is a gray zone. And same thing, if you're going to build housing next to an operating gravel pit, I would say as a planner, that's not a good place to put housing. But if you put housing there, I think the onus is on you to take some responsibility for the complaints that those people will have when it gets excessive. So
Okay,
it is a
thank you.
community issue. It is a planning issue. It is something that we need to discuss. And if you do need to have a bylaw that limits it somehow, or at least you make some effort to work with the parties involved because they feel they have nowhere to go. And I also sent a document that shows the health effects of that, right? So from even a liability health point of view, I think that the onus is on us to care about our citizens and to take it seriously and not point the finger to an upper level of government. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I want to
Mayor
address that.
Richardson.
Councillor McLaughlin, I take offense that you would insinuate that we are doing anything that is not in the interest of the community and the health of our citizens. So
It's okay. You can take
furthermore,
offense, yeah.
yes, I
I
do.
take offense when
So furthermore.
other issues are not being addressed.
Excuse
Thank
me,
you.
Chair. Furthermore, you reference that you provided some information. I have not received such information. When did you send it?
Just let
Yep,
let
I've-
the question be answered first.
Mhm.
Are you just looking at that, Councillor McLaughlin, when you sent that information?
Oh, I sent it today.
Oh,
Sometime it would have been after lunch then?
oh, okay.
Because I haven't seen it. That's my question involves
Okay,
a practical thing. But I'm asking, what time did you send it?
Don't know the exact time I sent it. I sent it
okay,
today.
so we'll just.
1:33. Around lunch.
1:33.
1:33,
So
okay.
thank you for that.
Okay, thank you.
There's some good information coming from Councillor McLaughlin. Your points are noted. Thank you. Councillor Toth.
Thank you, Chair. I think my question was mostly answered in that I also wanted to clarify if Councillor McLaughlin was referring to the email from 1:30 because I didn't have time to review the material
Mhm.
in time for this meeting. But if there was earlier content that she was referring to, then I may have missed it. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, so thank you for that as well. I haven't had a chance to review it, but appreciate sending the information on because that's the question also that's being asked is we need more information on how we might look at some of these how we might look at the bylaw as it is
Yeah.
and what possible solutions might come forward on that. So yes,
Just
go
just
ahead.
to follow up, I mean, I did send an earlier email to council and I was part of bringing up this issue some time ago. And I did reference some of this information, thinking some councillors could maybe look it up themselves, but I didn't see anything much back. And I realized the Abbotsford information seems so overwhelming. And I thought I better send some information out too, because, you know, otherwise we'll just think we're not Abbotsford, so we don't have to do that. So
Okay.
that's why I sent it out.
Thank you.
At the last
No,
minute.
thank you
Thank
for
you.
sending that out. Any more discussion before I try and wrap this? So at this point, what I'm hearing is the recommendation is that it be reviewed at a committee of the whole meeting in consideration of concerns expressed by community members. So that didn't necessarily, to me, does not say a date, just so is what I'm hearing. We want to move this forward. We want to have this in discussion further. And do we need to put a date on this? What's it look like as we put this out for a motion?
The committee can indicate any time frame that they would like, as well as any additional information that they would like to receive back from either staff or the community as well. It's in your hands.
Excellent. Okay, and I'll take both of yours, and can I just finish one? So I do have a question that would come from me to staff. And I know that this is going to also take some work for staff to look into some of these things. I'm just wanting to check in terms of sort of workload, that kind of thing, because we want to be able to, I don't want to force timelines on you that may not be achievable. So could you work with us on this and give us a timeline that might work for you?
No, I can't give you a timeline this second. We'll have to look at whatever is on the schedule for an upcoming cow first. As you
Okay.
can see, even this cow has gone dramatically long with just a couple of items. So putting something like a noise bylaw, like your example of whatever it was, 100 odd pages from the city of Abbotsford, would take some work. Staff have a lot on their plate right now, so reviewing a noise bylaw is not in the cards immediately. So if you can leave it with me, I will try and get back to you with a tentative schedule of when we might bring it back.
Okay, thank you. Well, further discussion, Councillor Shepherd first and Councillor Rowe, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Inkster.
No, I'm willing to move recommendation 1 that as drafted on
Okay.
page 56.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rowe, you had discussion?
Second.
Seconded. Then we discuss. And it's seconded by Mayor Henderson. Further discussion.
Further discussion for me would include what that actually looks like a bylaw. We need to be able to enforce it, or for me, it's like wasted work. So I don't know what that, is that a guy walking around with a monitor? Like, I don't know what that looks like. And if there's, I assume there would be equipment that we would need to purchase for staff to be able to do that. So
question.
that information, I would like to come back as well. I think.
I'll come to Director Allen just a moment. Just Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, it would, obviously, we buy equipment all the time. The district probably bought something today. It would be complaint-based, I'm assuming. And, you know, the staff has to find time to bring this forward, although they've seen it, it's going to come forward. They know that. They just have to find time to do it. There's some good recommendations from East Porpoise Bay Association here. That's a good starting point to look at some of the suggestions. A lot of times community organizations come up with ideas that council adopts. I think West Sechelt has some ideas as well. So that's information that could be incorporated into a report.
Okay.
Yeah,
Excellent.
thanks.
Thank you, Director Allen, and then Dr. Diane.
Oh.
Director Allen.
Thank you, Chair. And I don't want to prolong this, but I will say that while there are apps commonly available on phones, you cannot use that for the purpose of bylaw enforcement. It is a specialized machine that requires an expense, training, calibration, extensive monitoring. It's not an easy solution. And this is why most bylaws are written in the general sense, respecting disruption of calm and peace enjoyment rather than specific decibels. It's extremely calculated, difficult to defend, expensive, and difficult to monitor and enforce, and thus why not many bylaws are specific in that regard.
Thank you. Excellent.
Yes.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Through the chair. I mean, we're talking about the library, we're talking about a growing community, and, you know, we're talking about density. in some cases, perhaps a lot of density in existing residential areas. So I think noise issues, it's a good time now to, if we can get some handle on these things. For instance, a lot of places have outlawed gas, landscape equipment like blowers and mowers and trimmers and whatever else, just to keep the noise level down. So maybe it's not going to be a decibel thing. It might be an area specific issue. For instance, in the village, I think we have smaller lots, so we're more inclined to have issues regarding that. So maybe it's coming up with ideas about how to tailor things to specific neighborhoods and just show consideration to the residents and thinking about some of our long-term issues coming up to create good neighbors.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor McLaughlin. So what I'm hearing is certainly there's a great appreciation for the members of the community for giving us this feedback, and we really appreciate it, and we're listening. We want to spend more time in discussion on this. Councillor Toth, sorry, more discussion? Okay, and so we want to spend more time. We have a motion on the floor, and at this point, it is the noise bylaw 519/2012 be reviewed at a committee of the whole meeting in consideration of concerns expressed by community members. My question is, it's a motion. Do we need to make another motion? Let's vote on that one first. Okay, what do we do? You're going to do something.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to test you today.
You already are.
There's a lot of moving parts to this. I
Yes.
appreciate that. I think we need to have all the cards on the table if we're going to review this. I'd like to propose an amendment to the motion that's on the floor,
Okay,
which would be that the District of Sechelt seek a legal opinion prior to that meeting, confirming jurisdictional authority over regulated mining activity and airspace. I don't want us to make bylaw amendments that are going to get it quashed in court. And I'll just leave it there. Thanks.
okay. Okay, discussion on the amendment? A second. Councillor Rowe, seconded. Discussion.
If I could,
Yes, Councillor McLaughlin.
you know, my concern too is if we don't address these issues, we could be, have legal cases, whether you think we can win them or not. So I want to avoid that as well.
Okay.
By trying to resolve things. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to vote on the amendment. Can we have that repeated, please?
That the District of Sechelt seek a legal opinion prior to the Committee of the Whole meeting where the noise bylaw will be considered. I think Councillor Toth said this better, confirming jurisdictional authority on noise prior to the meeting.
Thank you. No?
It was specific, thank you for the opportunity to clarify. It was specifically around regulated mining activity and airspace.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so that's added to the amendment. All in favor or second? Did I second? It's already on the floor. You're good. And all in favor? Just discussion now. Okay. Yes. Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, I just didn't want to say no, vote against it. I'm going to be not supporting it. Our staff will do those due process things as part of the proposal of the bylaw. They don't bring forward things that are, I mean, complementarily speaking, staff does not bring forward things that aren't going to be workable or stand up in court immediately upon approval by council. So I will, I'm not going to approve. I'm going to say no, and I'm not going to approve. I trust staff. Thanks.
Okie dokie. All right, thank you. Councillor Shepherd.
I'm not gonna-
I'm actually going to support that. I agree with Councillor Inkster's comment that staff are going to be prudent when they're bringing forth a recommendation on any bylaw. But because those two areas, because of the point that Councillor McLaughlin raised and the point that I raised, and if that helps council make a decision, a further decision on the bylaw, I'll support it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Toth.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and I made the suggestion not because I don't believe our staff are capable of doing due diligence. I made the suggestion because council as a body is free to accept or ignore the advice of staff at our own peril. And we have passed short-term regulations that fit all the frameworks, and we've still ended up in court over it. So I just want to make sure that we have all of the cards on the table, that we know everything that we're getting into, eyes wide open. If it comes back, the legal opinion says that we don't have authority, and council decides they want to move forward with that anyways in an attempt to try and regulate it, that's a different conversation. But I think we need to have that definitively from one of the legal firms that we use. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Counselor Inkster?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm still not going to support it. I'm going to trust the process. People can still take us to court about everything. On everything we decide and everything we clear. It's up to the judges and our lawyers to present our case and the judges to decide. If you have money, you can take us to court on anything. If we start going down the thing of asking legal opinions, we might as well ask about our playground equipment. Is the slide too high? Are the stairs too slippery?
Okay,
Right?
yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, that's it? No more discussion? And so now, the amendment. It's time to vote on the amendment. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Not carried, it's defeated. And now the original motion as presented. All in favor? Well, me too. Yes. Opposed? Okay. Counselor Toth opposed? Yes. Carried. Good. I think that's it. Do we have any questions? Is there any other? No, any questions from the audience? Motion to adjourn first. Thank you. I'm doing a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? Not me, that's for sure.